welcome to this episode of season 4 of the Dr. Tech Show. After a slight gap, our devoted listeners and viewers will have noticed we've been off the air for a little while, but we're back now. And it's myself, Pauline, Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and sometimes guests like our special guest today, Paul Clayton, talking about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late and still much missed John Popham. All right, so let's not break from convention. Let's do the weather check. Sweyn, how are you, and how's the weather where you are? You're muted. I couldn't hear that. So is it just
How long
me?
is it since we did?
Yeah.
How long is it since we did this? I don't know.
A while.
Yes, the weather is lovely today. Sunny, warmish. We've had a terrible 2 or 3 weeks of horrible rain all the time, though, so it's nice to see the sun again.
Very good, very good. And Paul, how are you? Where are you? And how's the weather there?
Paul
Still
is
got Paul?
wrestling. Paul is wrestling with his headset. There we are.
Yeah.
So Paul, we didn't hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the battery's nearly done, hence the red light.
Okay.
So sorry, Pauline.
Do we need to give you a minute?
No, I'm with you. You can hear me.
Great stuff. So how are you? How's the weather? Where are you? And how are you? And how's the weather?
I'm in Southeast London. I'm okay. And the weather's actually, you can see the I had to put various curtains up because it's very nice outside, but it's a bit chilly.
Okay. Well, here in Birmingham, I've moved my desk recently, so I'm now in the window, so it's nice and bright out, maybe too bright, but I'm pleased with it, and there's no rain on the ground, so that's a good sign for as far as I'm concerned. So welcome back to the show. As I say, we've had a slight gap. I fell off my bike basically, and so we were kind of without myself to do some prep and stuff, and we decided to not to be on air while I was recovering, which took a little bit longer than I was hoping. But anyway, I'm back now, and we're all back. Hopefully, to resume the show until we have a summer break, although we will have an Easter break as well. Anyway, we have some dates and stories to share with you, and we are delighted again to have Paul on the show. Paul, we'll come back to you and do a proper introduction after we do the dates and events. Sweyn, do you want to do them, or shall I just go through them?
If you just want to go through them, that'd be fine, Pauline.
Great stuff. So the first of the list of dates that we have is called No More Week, which is starting today, Monday the 4th of March, running until the 10th of March. And Sweyn will bring up the link on the screen in a minute, but it's basically a national campaign to raise awareness to end domestic abuse and sexual violence across the UK. It seeks to unite and strengthen a diverse community of members of the public and organisations nationwide to actively take a stand against domestic abuse and sexual violence under one powerful visual symbol. The campaign provides open source tools and resources for individuals and organisations to take action and get involved in making a difference. Together, we can challenge the myths and misconceptions around these issues, share resources and information, and ultimately work together to make real positive change. And the call to action is be part of the response by believing, responding, and referring. And I'm sure Sweyn picked this up because of the open source tools that are available. It's not always easy to get good materials that other people to share across the internet. So when you find them, then we're glad to have them. And of course, domestic abuse affects lots of women and men across the UK, and including online abuse. So whatever we can do to mitigate against that, we wanted to help with. So thanks for that one, Sweyn. The next one is World Book Day, the day that entertains, shall I say, parents and guardians and minders of young children up and down the country who have to find costumes, I believe, I've never had to do this myself, for the young people to dress in according to whatever book it is. This year it's on Thursday, 7th of March. And the blurb says that World Book Day changes lives through a love of books and reading. They're a charity that operates in the UK and Ireland, and they're going to be celebrating World Book Day on the 7th of March. Their mission is to provide reading for pleasure, offering every child and young person the opportunity to have a book of their own. Reading for pleasure is the single biggest indicator of a child's future success, they say, more than their family circumstances, their parents' educational background, or their income. We want to see more children, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, with a lifelong habit of reading for pleasure and the improved life chances this brings them. And when we say parents, obviously we mean guardians and any grown-up that's responsible for raising a young person. World Book Day was created by UNESCO on 23rd of April 1995 as a worldwide celebration of books and reading. It's marked in over 100 countries around the globe. The first World Book Day in the UK and Ireland took place in 1997 to encourage young people to discover the pleasure of reading. As World Book Day founder, Baroness Gail Raybook recalls, we wanted to do something to reposition reading, and our message is the same today as it was then, that reading is fun, relevant, accessible, exciting, and has the power to transform lives. So we obviously completely 100% agree with that. Yeah, so hopefully.
And it provides a challenge every year for parents to provide dressing up costume.
Yes.
I saw an interesting, funny cartoon the other day where it's an alien and an alien small child, and the parent is saying to the small child alien, so you only tell me now that you need a dressing up outfit for tomorrow. And the tag was, this is why most alien abductions happen overnight.
Yes, all very relatable. Okay, moving on. Our third date that we've picked up, of course, is International Women's Day on Friday, 8th of March. And women up and down the country of all cisgender and trans women will have been picking out their outfits and deciding which of the many events that they could go to, they are going to go to. And women who do speaking at these events will have been asked multiple times if they could speak at events, some of them where they won't get paid, and hopefully they decide if they are speaking for an organization that could pay them, that they'll decide not to pay them, that they won't go to them, because we want women to be paid for their labor. So this is International Women's Day every year, and the blurb for this one says, imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes and discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together we can forge women's equality. Collectively we can all inspire inclusion, and that's the hashtag for this year's International Women's Day events. And they recommend that we celebrate women's achievement, raise awareness about discrimination, and take action to drive gender parity. It belongs to everyone, everywhere. Inclusion means all. International Women's Day action is valid. So 3 cheers for those who are organising events for and around International Women's Day. Either of you going to any events this year to mark International Women's Day?
I don't think I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit remiss.
Okay. Well, I'm going to an event called on Friday called Saving of Moseley Road Baths, which is a women in theatre event. So we're looking forward to that. That's at Moseley Road Baths in Birmingham at the Old Print Works. I have some spare tickets actually, if either of you want to come, but
I will consult my diary and my travel.
Yes, not the easiest traveling to do, but anyway, I'm sure I'll get somebody to come with me. So moving on, we picked up a number of events in this week as well, including obviously some of them for International Women's Day. And again, Inspire Inclusion is the strapline here. It's the first one. Sorry, did one of you wanted to contribute something? No? Okay. This is in Manchester. The event is called Inspire Inclusion in Tech Manchester, and it's on Wednesday, the 6th of March, to celebrate International Women's Day by shining a spotlight on diversity in the tech sector and highlight non-conventional routes into the sector for anyone wanting to get their foot in the door. And the one of the world's Becky Hindle, Commerce Lead of Meta, one of the world's leading technology companies, will be joining as their keynote speaker, and the There's also going to be a panel which includes Elizabeth Lawal, founder of More Than a Moment, who's a friend of mine. So I want to give her a shout out. Well done, Elizabeth. I hope you enjoy that event, and people do find it inspiring. You always find your speaker engagements very inspiring. And on to the next event on the 7th of March. Also hashtag Inspire Inclusion. This is when Digital Gurus celebrate International Women's Day, also in Manchester. And this event is on Eventbrite, as it was the previous one. And the speakers at this event are Naomi Timperley, FRSA, on catalyzing change, empowering women through inclusion in technology and innovation. Emma Louise Fasari, who about how employers can use a data-informed approach to protect women's health in the workplace. Amanda Hall, speaking on resilience, raging hormones, and the reality, aka Beauty and the Beast. And Lily Thistlewood, who speaking about from corporate life to startup, chaos and everything in between. So that sounds like something for everybody on that day, and we hope that they get plenty of people coming to that. And the final event, no, it's not the final event, second last event. We had to, of course, have one on AI because that's what everybody's talking about these days. And this is in Leeds, also on the 7th of March. And the event is called AI, Are You Taking the Red Pill or the Blue Pill? Why Not Both? And the blurb says that public demand for transparency and accountability will continue to grow as the influence of AI expands. What do we mean by responsible AI? This is billed as an evening of interactive discussion and debate as the event looks at the practice of responsible AI and how enterprise AI solutions are causing governments to catch up rapidly and issue guidelines, frameworks, policies, and legislation to protect citizens and society. Just like GDPR before, business and public bodies will not have a choice. Public demand for transparency and accountability will continue to grow as the influence of AI expands. But what do we mean by responsible AI and how can you act accordingly? Throughout this evening, there will be a look at the 5 core dependencies of responsible AI and how to approach policy, governance, and implementation within your organization. So the 5 core dependencies are people, context, validity and reliability, accountable, and transparent. So I'm sure you both have been deluged with AI events that you could attend in the last while. Either of you dipping your toes in that pond?
Not significantly. I'm very interested to see how it's all going, and I'm trying to keep up to date with it, but I haven't attended any events, no.
And Paul?
No events here. I've got a friend and colleague who's been doing some very interesting stuff as to creating documentation for organizations. And we had a little chat, and he made me some cartoon strips about enabling, showing how disabled people would use a computer. That's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Yes, it's been nearly everything that I've been going to recently has been about AI, just because I want to keep up to date and find out what's useful. And my colleague Gina and I have been looking at what we can share with other people, because the people we're working with, a lot of them have a low level of digital skills, and we don't want to kind of frighten them off, I suppose, or overwhelm them really with what they could do. So we're looking at the simple use of AI. But I have to admit that I looked at AI this morning only. I looked at ChatGPT and ran a query about the show and what was happening around digital inclusion since December last year. And ChatGPT reminded me that, of course, they only cover the internet up to 2022. So
Yes.
they don't have the more recent data, but they did list organizations whose websites I could check up on. So that was reasonably helpful. I did check on some of those websites. Okay, and just the final event for this week we've picked up is not about AI, but about digital imaging. And this is to do with the Black Country Living Museum. On the 8th of March, they're doing a talk on Shooting the Past, Digital Imaging to Record Heritage. It's a talk from only half an hour, 1:10 to 1:40 on Friday, 8th of March, part of the Heritage Careers Fair at the Black Country Living Museum. They say that photographic imaging has played a significant role in the recording of historic artifacts, buildings, and landscapes. Through the use of photography, we're able to capture and preserve images of the past for future generations to study and appreciate. So I just thought that would be fun for people to attend. I can't remember the last time I was at the Black Country Museum, but it is still a fascinating place to go. There's more blurb on the Eventbrite page for anybody who wants to follow up on that. Okay, and so we come to our special guest, Paul Clayton, who many of you will know, who has appeared on the show several times previously, and is always very welcome to have you back, Paul, and hear about what you've been doing lately. So let me just go through some of the things on your LinkedIn page, which hopefully give a flavour of what you've been up to. Just to remind people, you're the founding director of Comfortably Digital CIC, working with community organisations to enable a more sustainable approach to digital inclusion, training digital guides in organisations to help out people with basic problems and help point out a place to get more technical support. You also have done, I don't know if you're doing this at the moment, information communication technology tutor with Adult Learning Lewisham, supporting and assisting visually impaired and physically disabled people to use digital devices and attain a level of independence. Your projects include Mycene Digital, developing a service for the community centre with different strands of support, technology surgeries, short courses and workshops, and audio reminders, an ongoing project, you say, which was initially started to assist visually impaired people with reminders for good IT use. As part of your training delivery, this developed into a good practice for many clients without sight loss, as the reminders detail the processes necessary to accomplish tasks, which can be listened to while making the attempt. So welcome back to the show, Paul. We're again, as usual, delighted to have you. And is there anything else that you're doing you'd like to share with us that we haven't picked up on so far?
Okay. Well, due to my terrible lack of updating my blog and my LinkedIn profile, I'm obviously not vain enough or something. I don't know. Or the opposite of vain. So yes, I've been working with Casper Kennedale and Clay Community Web over in Camberwell, Southeast London, and I'm really pleased to be doing that. I'm very happy actually, because it brings me back to working with disabled people again. I've been hosting a drop-in and a course that I've been developing with them called Digital Foundations, which brings me back to some of those audio reminders again. I do a lot of stretching. Do a lot of stretching with people, and I talk about posture a lot, and I talk about typing, and I talk about all the core skills about just getting on with the machine effectively. And then what happens as you get to limit yourself just to understanding what keys do. We talk about keyboarding as well. Then people's cognitive process kick in a little bit as to how to get on with things. So the drop-ins have been really good because they give an opportunity for people to have someone to ask and work through some issues, and maybe get some advice about accessibility too. So that's been a really good project. The Mycene Digital project has been going for some time. Maybe not for much longer. I'm starting another project though in Abbey Wood with the community centre there. Doing the main thrust of Comfortably Digital at the moment is effectively the tech support project. It's about giving people access to some knowledge and advice at the organisational and at the sort of beneficiary level.
Okay, that sounds really good. And so you're working with Casper from Clear Community Web, and I know he's active on social media, writing about his experience as well. And it sounds like his sessions and the sessions obviously you're working on as well are growing really well. Have you noticed a difference in the last few months for people? Are they enjoying the kind of informal nature of what you do, or do they want more structured learning?
That's a great question. What happens is that we have to get to the point where they can and move towards structured learning. What my practice has been moving towards is a sense of ownership. So this also engages with mental health issues as well, and trying to actually have a few strategies, coping mechanisms for dealing with things. It's really hard to use a device if you've got if your own brain isn't working well, or you're unable to sequentially manage your situation. So it's trying to slow down a little bit there. informal learning is a lot of, I think it has a real place still. But what I'm finding is that why I've moved towards the tech support side of things is that people are goal driven. I was at an event where I said off the cuff, and I now hold it to myself. I own ownership of this little phrase that people are goal driven and computers aren't.
Mm.
And it's really valid.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really valid. The more I think about that, because what happens is that people, you need to define their goals, you need to work out their processes and their methods, and then you need to translate that into a format for people to use a computer with. And it becomes easier if you separate those tasks. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what does that look like if someone comes to one of your sessions who hasn't been there before? How do you kind of induct them, if you like?
The induction. Well, let's say we start with we give people the opportunity. I'm talking about these Camberwell sessions principally, though it's similar in respect to the other projects I do. We work out what's right with what's not right with something, where the access issues lie first. I have a little theory that what happens is if you can the literacy improved when the creation of cheaper lenses happened.
Mm-hmm.
That more people could read. It wasn't that they couldn't read before; is that they couldn't see before. So try and get the access issues resolved first, and then go from there. My favorite thing I do, especially over in Camberwell, is to set up an open source typing tutor for people.
Yeah.
And it's quite a venerable software. It's even got a game included with it, and it's people just love sitting there and they feel that they're actually doing something.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
And are you know, what's the structure like? Can people just drop in, or do they need to sign up for a number of sessions?
Well, like I said, the both aspects of what I'm doing are very drop-in orientated, so it is just come on in. With the Camberwell project, seeing as it's a disability focus, we like to register people. And it's also been funded, so it has to have that numbers game. Yeah, it's no, and then what happens is that we, with the team that I'm working with, that work with Casper, we identify people that are already going to other drop-ins and projects around the areas. So we try to bring them in that way, and that's been quite successful. What happens is, though, as well, that it's a very short course of only 6 weeks, and we've really had a lot of people just come back for a second time because they've found that they've brought up a level of their confidence and their abilities, but they want to try and drill down a little bit more. And maybe they like my lovely northern voice. I don't know.
I suppose also as people get to a certain stage, and this is true of everyone, once you get to that stage, then your goals change because you've learned something, and so you might well identify and need to do more, do this a thing again, but in another context of your life.
It's true. I do tend to find a part of the course involves note taking, which is a really tough topic to broach. And what I realize is that not everyone practices as well. I think some things are really hard to practice, and it's great to have me around and my colleague to dig them out of holes. So I think what happens is they come back again to get that refresher that really builds it in, so they can practice them a bit more. Yeah, so it's been really positive. The take-up's been great. In fact, we're on the last cohort now, and it's the biggest numbers so far. So
okay, that's really good. And what kind of age groups are coming, Paul?
Oh, great questions, Pauline, as usual. The age groups, I mean, what tends to happen with a lot of digital inclusion, it tends to be the older generations. But this time we're getting a few that aren't a little bit more my age group, some more middle-aged people, but not many. There's a few. There's a bit of a mix.
Is there a gender, imbalance or balance?
Actually, surprisingly, it's been a good mix. I've been very surprised by the mix.
Yeah. I sometimes think that because we ran an event with BT in Birmingham recently. We kind of were just there assisting them, where they were telling people about digital voice. The changeover to the broadband phone systems, and I noticed a lot of couples came along, like husbands and wives, and I could just watch them kind of getting sitting at a table with a BT colleague, and I could see the more often than not the man was doing a lot of the talking, but the woman was actually making notes and sort of picking things up and asking more questions and stuff. So I think it seemed like quite a traditional setup, but people just learn differently, don't they? And you have to accommodate that, and sort of people do end up helping each other. Do you find that people in kind of come as a couple and then and just help each other, or do they get involved with each other in kind of smaller groups at your sessions?
Yeah. Now, just to make a point about that partner dynamic, I found it falls into two camps where blokes, I call it a bloke syndrome, tend to step up and it's all about them, or they tend to step back and be very reluctant because I've managed this far in life. So and what happens is I've met a lot of people, historically women actually, who've lost their husbands and partners and have brought in devices that we have to dig them out of a hole of, or for them to start learning because they've never used them before. And someone had their partner or husband had been taking on that role. On a few occasions, it's been a little bit more even-handed, but yes, it's very interesting that. I did have one couple who used to come in and they just had a phone, a normal phone, and he said it's for emergencies, and she would never remember how to actually use the phone. It was a very simple phone. And I said, well, can you make a text? And well, she never remembered because they were together. This couple had been together since they were, teens. It was very romantic, lovely people. And then one day I just thought, well, why don't you just text him and tell him you love him? The practice, That was nice, but it still didn't land, I suppose. But I think the gender differences, it's very interesting. There's not much of a one of the things I've noticed is like an emergent attitude within groups. There's not many partners as such. I try to make everyone very welcome and open, and I find that openness and welcoming approach is it really helps gel the group in the first place. So they're in fact, sometimes I have to really watch out that I've made them too sociable, because then, they're not in the room anymore. They're too busy socializing. And and Casper's, I've brought in an element of Casper's approach into the sessions, whereby we have a break, we have a tea break, because there's also the resources for that. So that's great. That really sort of slows things down a little bit. It stops people having to feel a bit stuck and enables them to have a chat. I'm really fond of the emergent value of groups, how they can work together. And what has to happen is the children do this readily, but older adults have to trust one another.
So, children assume already that people want to play with them or want to talk to them or want to share maybe. There's much more of that going on. And I was just about to ask you about refreshments and breaks, because I think that's critical in a learning environment for any of us who are learning. To have a time to process what we're picking up and talk to other people. And also, are the centres where people are coming to do the sessions with you, are they places where they would have come anyway, libraries and community centres, or are they kind of new places that are new to them?
Well, this is interesting because the projects I'm running at the moment, other than the ones with Casper, are all in community centres, which have, I mean, one of them, my Mycenae House, is a bit of a hidden one, actually. Yeah, there are sometimes some community centres can be a bit hidden, and this is a medical centre in Camberwell that we're working in. And this has its own issues. There is one bus that goes round it on both directions, and there's a very strange one-way system, but it's people are there's quite a stretch for some people to get to. So we've had to try and accommodate as best we can with that. But that has caused issues, especially with some people with low vision and having to get there. It's been problematic for some. So yes, it's hard. The Casper's obviously managed to get the community networks together to be able to find the spaces, but because room hire is, on an extended basis becomes really quite, it's quite expensive.
Yeah.
But this is a community room in a medical centre, so that's quite useful.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that set up before, actually.
Yeah,
in a medical centre. Yeah.
It's very interesting. It seems to be has some small interview rooms down the side of it, which also really serve a great purpose.
Yeah,
which have been fantastic. It's actually given me opportunity to do some of my other skills that you may not know about too much, Pauline. I've been an employability advisor for young people in the past, and I've got some neat tricks I do with a set of cards called "What's Your Strength," and it's great because I don't get involved. I just give them the cards. I could work with teens in this. They get one with a syllabus, or I get ones for adults, which are just complete, like a whole range of topics and subjects and issues. And I just give them the cards. They take out the cards that apply to them, and then we make a mind map out of that. We photograph it for a record. We make a mind map out of it. We can then make a digital mind map out of it if we go there, and it gets interesting because then we talk about tasks and where to go and what to do, and it's I really am just facilitating. It's fantastic.
That sounds great. I want to get those cards because I can see uses for them in all the sessions I'm doing in Birmingham. Yeah,
well, worth it. I'll send you a link.
Thank you. Oh yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was normally when we talk about digital inclusion, we talk about the devices and the data and the skills, and you're kind of we've just been talking about the skills so far, a little bit about devices. Are you finding that people still need, are people looking for devices and data still? Do they have enough of them now? Or if they don't have them, do they know where to go to get them?
This is interesting. So the project had a really interesting side attitude. There's when you're doing disability-based projects, it really helps if there's disability organisations in your area. And there is one in Lambeth, and they had purchased through the Good Things Foundation a whole slew of laptops. And these were very nice laptops as well. And so what it was, it really worked very well. I think that word synergy came into play there, as two projects just worked perfectly. They were helping a whole bunch of people gain ownership and get them set up at the same time, and it gave that project some capacity to enable that to actually have some good outcomes, rather than just some boxes that end up become hard to use and problematic. There is still the issue with devices here and there. There's some issues around people just using phones only, because they're easier to access. And I think there's some things about how old the phone. We've got one gentleman, bless him, with visual impairment, and he's ESD. He's had his diagnosis, etc. He's really find it very tough with the old phone that he has. He's filled it up with loads of Bollywood songs and such. It's fantastic. He loves it. The smile on his face when he's playing them, it's great. But what happens is the stuff he gets sent via WhatsApp just fills it up, and it's a constant purge. And that's just fine. But what it is, the phone is creaking with age now at the time. And I don't know if it's safe. I don't know if it's wise to say the brand name, but we find that it's a bit of a lock-in in terms of what it means for him to be able to use another phone. You know,
so it's not Android then.
It is an Android, but with a specific company brand here, Sweyn. A Swedish one.
Oh, right.
With a D.
Yes.
So
yes.
So really nice idea, but bad in practice.
So does this person not want to change their phone, or?
Well, because of his autism, he's really finds change hard, and also secondly, that his support network has been very, very slow. Casper's team have been great. They've gone, oh well, Paul, here's a phone he can borrow. You know, he can try this phone. Here's a loan phone, and he just hasn't wanted to because his nephew is being involved and says, my nephew is on the case, and he shows us a printout and he's going to get this phone. And I mean, this has taken 2 months to get to this point. It's fine. I suppose what it is with disabilities, you have to change the time scale of everything. Everything becomes a lot slower. It's helped me develop my patience.
The key asset for any of us in digital inclusion, I keep saying that to people whenever they employ new people, you know, ask for patience as an essential when you're employing people. Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't teach it somehow.
No,
I think it's an attitude more than anything, and it's something that you can learn, I think. But what happens is that it's how you learn it is the issue.
It helps if you're not teaching your own family. Then patience, for me anyway, goes out the window.
No,
swap families for technical support, definitely.
Absolutely. I call this this is the driving instructor syndrome.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I can relate to that. You mentioned posture earlier, Paul. I think that was a great reference as well. Interestingly enough, I'm having physio for my current ailments, and my physio has recommended that I stand up and exercise every 20 minutes, which means I've failed so far in my so far this morning since 12 o'clock. But she's given me a routine to go through to kind of just move my shoulders and legs and arms and stuff. And I think a lot of us do just need to be reminded that not to be sitting down all day. So I know that you kind of are a believer in exercise anyway. What kind of things are you encouraging people to do in your sessions around exercise?
Okay.
Posture.
Well, I am a believer in exercise because I'm a Tai Chi and Qigong guy. So I'm a big believer in getting those joints and sinews and tendons sort of stretched as often as possible. What happens is one thing that I've done in these sessions that I've been meaning to do, and it's been great with Casper and his team, is to make a booklet. And what I've done is make a booklet and a toolbox, and I've created an audio of general stretching instructions.
Wow. And
I've also created a printout with the instructions on it. Some general stretches that I've actually known since I was learning to type as a young man, actually. But I've incorporated a few more shoulder rolls and neck rolls that get you going. It's just really just trying to get people moving and remind them to move. It's really nice when I'm with the room when you're doing sideways stretches, because I say hello to your neighbors. And again, we're getting very present, very much in the now. I think it's very hard to get up and move around because you get locked in. So what it is, it's sort of a sideways organic thing. I've been trying to teach people about note taking lots of ways, but I also say you shouldn't be staring at a screen. You should be thinking about what you're trying to do first. If you're going to write a letter, write the letter down first if you're still learning to type. Split the cognitive load, but saying that's a bit heavy for them. But for you, Pauline, I would recommend what I've got in front of me right now, I've got I say in the lockdown I was getting terrible sciatica from sitting a lot, and I went to Argos for a table riser,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and I got a good table riser. I didn't skimp on it. I got a one with a sort of a gas can on it, so it rises smoothly up and
Oh,
down,
lovely.
Yes, yeah.
and it really is a game changer because I get
Yeah.
to stand.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I don't have a mat or anything. That's the downside, but it really is just having
Mm.
half an hour standing instead of sitting is
Yeah.
just real different. And you can actually I could be have a little dance when you didn't
Yeah.
know, would you?
Yeah, yeah. I know
Everywhere
the
I've
go on, Sweyn.
everywhere I've worked, I've fashioned myself a standing workstation out of cardboard boxes, basically.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
And light enough, empty cardboard boxes, so that when you
Mm.
decide you're going to stand for half an hour, you can move them into place.
Mm-hmm.
And you need one for your mouse, and you need to make sure it's the right height and so on. Everybody laughs at me, but I everywhere I've worked, I've done that.
Yeah.
Although I've seen a trend for those who are working for organizations that can afford it, or these very fancy standing up desks that you can readjust and so on. But
Mm.
a table raiser from Argos, I must look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like the
it's
sound.
Simply the
it's
act of standing is the biggest is
Mm.
the biggest kind of change that you can make if you're not doing much at all. Standing rather than sitting can make a
Yeah.
huge difference to your health.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I found that to be the big thing that it really changes. It just sitting for a little bit too long. I used to do a lot of computer time sitting, and when you're younger, it's not too hard on your body. Yes, that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but now that you're
Mm.
a little bit older, I don't want to say wiser, but older, my body doesn't like it as much.
No.
Yeah,
No.
No,
and
exactly.
no, and it is the I remember reading some HSE documents about this, about how you get these micro gravity situations on your body. You know, it really is tiny and over time. And I think that's what it is. It's the incremental nature of it.
Yeah.
So I try to keep everyone mindful. Don't,
Mm.
and I mean in a very physical sense rather than anything else.
Mm.
So yes, I think posture's the big thing, because what happens is that it's actually uh, it's about your engagement with the device again that really
Mm.
matters. And again, like as I said, it all comes back to how you're working with something to be able to do something, to be able to get on with something, to be able to learn something. If you're
Mm.
not comfortable and you're in
Yeah.
pain, well, what's the
It's
biggest voice in the room? Well,
yeah,
not mine, it's the
Yeah.
the
pain,
pain.
you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. I think I was looking at a job the other day, and they wanted a teacher who did cybersecurity and what was it, coding and such. And I thought, well, accessibility isn't sexy, is it? It just isn't
Mm.
sexy. I can't,
Mm.
you could sit and learn about all that stuff, but then develop real chronic issues, and
Mm.
none of that's got. You got to come
Yeah.
back to that last. It's like,
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than as the first thing you learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you finding, Paul, that people are aware of of national programs like the National Device Bank and the National Data Bank, or are they things you need to tell people or remind people that are out there if they want devices and data?
Now, it's interesting. I'm going to relate a project I've been working with at Mycenae, where we've had loan machines for some time. I think there's a surfeit of devices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a surfeit of devices, not always appropriate or correct, but there's a surfeit of them. And data, yeah, I understand that. Data bank. I think there's different places with different needs, and it is demographics that sort of play a part there.
Mm.
I don't. I think I've met many people with any awareness of these national schemes.
Mm.
But when I've been working at Mycenae, where we've been working with the council uh, project, which has been going for a couple of years and has been very strange who it was focused at. It felt its focus was people with learning disabilities rather than a wider audience, which meant that the machines were heavily locked down
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
with a built-in SIM with only a few gigabytes of data. And it
Mm.
felt like a really hard to pitch situation. We had them brought back by a few people because they found them barely usable.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is it's like, sure, you can have things. And then the flip side, there's these amazing Good Things Foundation laptops that these disabled people were getting were fantastic. They also had great amounts of data in and everything, but these were actually really good at the flip side were really positive on every level. I think what it is, it's about the organizational level and awareness.
Yeah.
I think that individuals don't really need to know, or they find it hard enough to negotiate all the rest of it. I mean, it's separating jargon from brand names is enough of a job.
Yep.
So I think the organizations have their own issues. I worked with a learning disability charity over lockdown, and what happened is that they didn't want to work with the Good Things Foundation because of the sheer amount of bureaucracy that was involved. The paper filling, the tracking was just a little bit inordinate. And they ended up getting a whole load of refurb devices. I just worked my way through the ones that worked and distributed them. And we got Smarty Sims, actually, I think.
Yeah, I think they're still available. They're considered to be good value. Yeah, I mean, admin for applying for any kind of grant or any kind of support is always a big consideration with me. And I don't want to comment on the Good Things Foundation, kind of administration, but I know they, like all grant giving bodies, they would try to decrease it, but it's not always possible. But speaking of them, they now have the National Digital Inclusion Network and what formerly the Online Centres Network. And I can see that they're adding new online centres, new digital inclusion hubs on a regular basis to their previously number of hubs. And I think it's because they have made it easier for for organizations to become part of the network. The requirement has decreased for the number of people that they're teaching, and because you have to be part of the National Digital Inclusion Network to be part of the National Data Bank, then obviously people are doing one and then leapfrogging into the other, which is great. And in Birmingham, we've got a list on the Digital NNS website of all the Birmingham members of the network, so we're contacting them to see about getting more involved with them. But I'm not sure again that people are aware of what's available. Although the Good Things Foundation has launched a campaign for this month, I think, called Digital for All, and I know they're having billboards up at various places around the country that will encourage more people to kind of see people like them who are increasing their digital inclusion, which hopefully will be positive. I mean, having said that, though, we still want to make it possible for people to take part in life in an internet world offline if they want to. We still talk about that on this program. That just because something is available online doesn't mean that should be the only way people can access that service. So I just want to say that again. I'm sure
we've had a good local example of that recently. Those who are entitled over 60s and some young people are entitled in the Scottish Islands to have, as part of their travel entitlement, 4 vouchers for a single ferry crossing as well. So you can make 4 trips on a ferry as well as the normal bus travel that people get with their bus pass, for want of a better word. Well, they've decided to do away with the paper or cardboard vouchers and manage those vouchers as part of the chip on your entitlement card, your national entitlement card in Scotland. I thought it was quite well announced, quite well, lots of support if you don't want to do it that way. I mean, you do have to get the things on your card eventually, but you can do it when you book your ferry. You can do it in all sorts of different ways. And also there's an app if you want to do it that way. Huge outcry of this is a backward step. We, it's and the kind of, I suppose the only kind of one of giving away my own opinion of this outcry, but I suppose the one thing that struck me was that it's going from a system where you have your vouchers and you can see how many you've got because you've got them. You don't need to do anything with a card to find out how many you have left this year. And B, almost no one requires support or help or to feel anxious about a bit of paper that they can hand over for a ticket. Whereas a good proportion of people will require at least the first couple of times, and they're only be doing it once a year, getting the new ones and all that. So I've had upmost in my mind. I've had many conversations about, how do you support people who really can't, for whatever reason, or don't want to engage in this digital thing. And I was initially looking at this scheme, so thinking, well, actually, they've thought that through. They've got these other routes for you to get your card active and for you to do that. But still, there's this kind of nervousness. No, it's lack of confidence. It's in the technology, and it's just the natural nervousness about change. It's been quite an interesting one, actually, because I've always thought they should be on the card ever since they were introduced. One year they introduced this all singing, all dancing national entitlement card. The next year they introduced an entitlement which wasn't on the card.
Wow.
That's a long time ago.
Oops. Now. Yeah.
You reminded me of a card I once stumbled on in a book, and it was an old London travel card, and it was actually a scratch card. You would scratch off. You would scratch off the days you would travel, and it would be valid for that day.
Fantastic.
I thought,
I remember
that's
that.
quite genius.
I remember those.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember those as well. And people kind of would kind of do a little scrape maybe on one day because they wanted to make it work 2 days, and not saying that I or anybody I know.
No, or anybody you've ever known.
No.
But have their flaws. Have their flaws. Those.
I mean, I think every technology has its issues.
Yes.
But I think one of the problems is a bit like there's similar issues in London at the moment around going cashless, and then you have to have an app that tells you how to manage your money. It's a sort of a downward spiral into a sideways attitude where, well, wait a minute, you only have the money that you have. Why do you have to then try to manage debt? And with a transport card, like you get Oyster cards in London now for years now. If there's nothing on it, how do you know?
Exactly.
How do you know until you get there?
Yeah,
exactly.
You don't.
That is one of the big things about cards.
Very bothersome that some pubs as well now insist on card only payments of people, and that's just, we don't always want to pay by card. Not everybody has a card, so it's with that kind of exclusion we definitely don't want to encourage. We've only got a kind of few minutes left before the end of the show, Paul, and it's fascinating. It's great to have you on again, and I think we've had a really good conversation, but I did want to hit just one of the stories that we have been, as we usually have some stories to talk about on the show as well, and this one I think is particularly relevant because it kind of addresses the dynamic of digital inclusion work, the way it's being done in a very different way than we've heard previously, and I think it's really well worth sharing. So Sweyn, if you can bring it up on screen. It's from Promising Trouble, which is Rachel Caldicutt's outfit, and the article is entitled Digital Inclusion for 2024 and Beyond by Anna Dent. And I want to read out the text because I think it's really important and worthwhile. Basically saying that digital inclusion charities, community organizations, and local authorities do valuable and impactful work providing training, digital devices, and digital access to people who are digitally excluded. But too often that work can't get to the root causes of exclusion. It's often underfunded and overly reliant on volunteers and other services and infrastructures that are facing their own challenges, such as libraries. One reason for this is the origins of current digital exclusion policy in priorities and evidence from the early 2010s. It has not kept pace with the changing world we live in, nor the advances in technology, nor has it sufficiently interrogated the structural underpinnings of digital exclusion. Rather than address fundamental challenges such as the lack of affordability in the broadband market, much of the work to tackle digital exclusion is based on a charitable model of donated devices and time-limited access to free data. This mirrors the proliferation of food banks, a sign that something fundamental is broken rather than a cause to be celebrated. So Careful Trouble, as part of their community connectivity report, is embarking on a series of publications and discussions throughout the spring where they introduce new perspectives to the debate, explore how to make digital inclusion policy fit for the AI age, which is a new way of putting it, and address some of the root causes of digital exclusion. And they've published a brilliant report by their policy researcher Tom McGrath, looking at 3 relatively simple and inexpensive ways in which digital inclusion policy can be improved in the short term. And I really wanted to flag these up. They point out that the way that we use the internet in 2024 is not the same as it was in 2014. Blah. Rather than logging on to complete specific tasks, many of us are now connected at all times of the day and night, and virtually all aspects of our lives can be mediated through the internet. But the official definition of digital inclusion has not kept pace. The Office for National Statistics still classifies an internet user as anyone who has accessed the internet in the past 3 months. I mean, that's unbelievable. So it goes on to say the skills we need to navigate the internet and the wider technology landscape have also changed dramatically over the past decade. The extent to which the online world is woven into our lives means digital skills are not a standalone skill set, but a more personalized and nuanced set of tools, knowledge, and hands-on experience. The interwoven nature highlights the central importance of digital access to our lives, in many ways no different to other essential utilities such as electricity and water, but doesn't benefit from the same consumer protection, something that Careful Trouble and Rachel Caldecott thinks we should change. So Tom's report posits three challenges and potential solutions, and to highlight them, just to pick them out. The first fix is to gather better data, replacing the outdated ONS definition of digital inclusion with a new, more holistic and up-to-date approach. So the current definition serves as a proxy for measuring the levels of digital inclusion in society. And that was, they say the definition may have been appropriate in 2004 before broadband access was widespread and when mobile internet access was sluggish and cumbersome. Not appropriate in 2024 when access to digital healthcare services is a core strategic goal for the NHS and where streaming services have eclipsed traditional TV networks. So for those who are truly digitally connected, a more accurate measure might be whether they've been online in the last 3 hours. And that's certainly something that we can all, I think, subscribe to on this program. Secondly, they're saying we need a modern community and person-centric approach to skills, focused on outcomes and consistent support, rather than tick boxes and fast delivery. Digital skills should not be thought of as a qualification or training course, but as a means to participate actively in society. Instead of a universal checklist of skills, a new government should focus on ensuring everyone can achieve in ways that work for them. This also means taking responsibility for real-world alternatives where necessary and simplifying digital rules for essential services so that everyone has access to banking, education, and healthcare, whether or not they choose to do so online. Again, echoes of the conversation we've been having. And finally, they're saying the third fix is to declare internet access an essential utility, learning from international partners to protect consumers. If internet access is a precondition of managing one's healthcare and maintaining social and economic participation, then it should be reclassified as an essential utility. In fact, the Government Office for Science has recommended that internet access should be an essential utility to improve health outcomes. At present, being statutory designated as a utility like electricity provides some protections for consumers, such as from disconnection compared to non-utility services such as broadband. It doesn't automatically lead to protection from price rises, sadly a situation that has emerged through the cost of living and energy crisis, but it does put consumer protection on a stronger footing and could support a broadband market that better meets the needs of lower income households. So I just find myself nodding vociferously with that report and finding, I want to tell more people about it, but not everybody knows about it. And I think it's really important that this, promising trouble is seen as an important player on the stage these days. Do either of you want to comment on that before we draw the show to a close? Especially the definition part, not 3 months, 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I even say now that we have a city model that's been finally come to pass. This is proper science fiction now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if you are going to use that type of time elapsed criterion for digital inclusion, then yes, 3 hours is closer to than 3 months. But I think the definition really has a lot more aspects to it than that. And I think that's part of what they're trying to say in the report. I mean, I don't think they're seriously suggesting that we just swap 3 hours in for 3 months and keep the same definition. But
yeah, it's
no,
yeah.
there's lots of really good stuff. It's great to see how the kind of thinking on these kinds of topics has developed over the time we've been doing the show since pandemic. It's things have moved on, at least in aspiration and kind of project definition, enormously over the last couple of years, and we just need to make sure that eventually we get to a point where everyone's included in that.
Well, I'm going to try and I'll keep an eye on that program as it develops. They are asking for people to contact them if they want to be part of what they're developing, and I certainly like to be part of that. And if Rachel or Tom have the time to come on the show, then we would
That would
love
be
to
great,
have them as a guest.
Yeah.
Paul, we're again, as I say, delighted that you were able to join us today for the kind of relaunched, I suppose, season 4 of Dr. Tech Show. As usual, if people want to contact you outside of the show, where's the best place to find you online?
Okay, comfortablydigital.org.uk or paul@comfortablydigital.org.uk. That's my email.
Great stuff. And all these notes will be on the YouTube program after the show. So thanks again for joining us. Great to see you, Sweyn. Thanks everybody for joining us. We are hoping to be back on Hope Radio at some stage in the near future. Hoping that's back on, so people get 2 bites of this particular cherry. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thanks.